The Gaza War and ceasefire will remain top on agenda during talks between US President Joe Biden and his UAE counterpart Sheikh Muhammad as he begins an official visit to Washington on Monday. The visit comes amid the United Arab Emirates showing increased frustration with Israel's handling of the Gaza crisis and the conflict continuing with no end in sight. Abu Dhabi's relations with Israel improved after the signing of Abraham Accords in 2020, though the ties began to sour in the last few months over the Gaza conflict.
President Biden and Vice President Harris will discuss with President Muhammad, obviously, the crisis in Gaza, UAE's essential role in addressing the humanitarian crisis there, and the crisis in Sudan, where, as the President's statement made clear last night, we all must increase efforts to open routes for humanitarian assistance and ultimately to secure a ceasefire.
On the other hand, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in Egypt to push for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and ensure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Egypt, along with Qatar, is mediating talks between Israel and Hamas, and the United States is facilitating the peace process. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu's office has slammed an Israeli media report accusing him of torpedoing hostage deal. His office said the false claims in the media echoed the propaganda of the terrorist organization Hamas, quote-unquote. The Prime Minister's office argued that Netanyahu accepted all of the US proposals. Though the ceasefire talks are now deadlocked over Netanyahu's insistence on the Israeli control of the Philadelphia corridor along the Egypt-Gaza border. Furthermore, the UN General Assembly strongly supported a Palestinian drafted resolution on Wednesday demanding that Israel and its unlawful presence in Gaza and the occupied West Bank within a year. The 193-member General Assembly adopted the resolution with 124 nations voting in favor and 14, including Israel and the US, opposing it, while 43 nations abstained from voting. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken made his 10th visit to the Middle East since Hamas's October 7th attack against Israel, stopping in Egypt, but making a point not to stop in Israel. This departure from his usual itinerary really reflects the stalemates and efforts to broker a ceasefire deal for Gaza, which has become a top priority for the Biden administration. Analysts suggest that Blinken's repeated meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not only didn't yield any results, but actually yielded diminishing returns, with Netanyahu increasingly undermining or contradicting U.S. positions when it came to the Hamas-Israel war. As tensions rise with Hezbollah in Lebanon, the U.S. is drafting a new proposal to try to bridge the gap between Israel and Hamas, who don't seem to be agreeing on any form of ceasefire. Officials, however, here in the United States made clear that those explosions of thousands of Hezbollah pagers on Tuesday and then other devices on Wednesday would not change Anthony Blinken's plans in the Middle East, despite U.S. fears of a wider war looming in the region. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.